I think comparison is a dangerous game, and attaching shame to it is particularly insidious because it drains your energy. In general, having shame around any of these mistakes, it causes you to avoid the money topic altogether. It can cause. Hey, it's Samantha Hartley of the Profitable Joyful Consulting Podcast. This is season 14, and this is the money season. We're talking about all things money. Last episode, we spoke with Jen Sapel on the topic of financial principles for consultants. And today I wanted to talk about money mistakes and the shame that we feel around them. You know, years ago, we had moved from one location to another, and I hadn't found a new tax person. My old guy had retired. And so I one year I didn't file because I couldn't kind of get the paperwork together and everything was a little disorganized. And then the next year came and I was still disorganized. And then the next year came. And so a few years went by when I just didn't file any taxes. And you may know that's extremely illegal to do. And I was just overwhelmed. I didn't have the support. I didn't have the person. I couldn't get all the papers and all that stuff together. And I was just beside myself with this problem that I kept putting off and avoiding. And it just was getting worse and worse and worse. And I was just like, I had a story in my head about what a terrible person I was and what a terrible business consultant, because I should know better, and how unsupported I felt and how overwhelmed because I couldn't find the person to help me with this. And I was in a meeting once with a guy who does this for a living. And he said, basically, a good referral for me is anybody who has a tax mess on their hands. And I was like, oh my gosh, my hand shot up in the air and was like, please come to me, help me. And when I told him my story and how bad and wrong and shameful and terrible and everything bad, sad I felt, he was like, here's what he didn't say. He didn't say, oh my God, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. You should be ashamed of yourself. Like, how do you call yourself a consultant? Like, what is going on with you? He didn't say that at all. He was like, oh, okay. And I was like, isn't this the worst? He was like, oh, I've seen much worse. This is not even a bad problem. Here's what we're going to do. Step 1, step 2, step 3. And he was so kind of like blasé about it. I just thought, he had no emotion around this whatsoever. And I had not just this incredible 3-part drama constructed around my situation. I had, all of the accompanying shame about how terrible this was and how this should never have happened. He totally did not have that. And what I've learned since then, and you can hear, I don't really have any shame around that story anymore at all because I don't really care. It's over. I settled it. I learned what I needed to learn. I've moved on from it. And I've been able to help people with that story since then, with my own experience. Tons of people have money mistakes all the time, and they're not running around just crippled by shame. They're fine, and they're functioning, and they get over themselves and move on. So I specifically wanted to talk today about money mistakes that you might be making in your business. And so let's know what they are so that we don't make them. And also all of this accompanying story that we have about that if you are feeling like weighed down by this trauma and shame, then let's really address that today so that you can get some perspective on that and move on more easily. So you heard my tax story. A follow-up to the tax story is that you may not know I neglected paying them for years, but sometimes I've been in situations where somebody has gotten a huge tax bill and freaked out and not know what to do about it. The IRS will give you a payment plan, so you can pay it off in a reasonable amount of time in case you didn't plan accordingly. And that's also something to not have any shame about. It's like, hey, this is just a thing that they do. They wouldn't offer that service if there weren't people who were in that situation. So hey, it's not that big a deal. That's a big money mistake that I have made in my life. But when I lead my workshops, what I'll often begin with is, what are the 3 biggest money mistakes that you have made in your life? I'm not asking anybody to say that out loud. I'm just saying, write it down. So I'll invite you to answer that question yourself. What are the 3 biggest money mistakes you've made? And we're talking about business today, so let's keep them in the business, but you can also do this exercise in your personal life. The 3 biggest money mistakes you've made. What I've noticed is nobody has to think. for everyone I've ever worked with, it's like top of mind. Like we know what they are, and we usually know what top 1, 2, and 3 are. There's information for us in that we can unpack. Like you can learn about yourself from what the commonalities in those stories are. So we're going to come back and take a look at those in a minute. So first, I want to look at what are common money mistakes that consultants make in their businesses. Obviously, that tax one is a huge one. So consultants fail to plan for taxes, for big expenses like that. And there are ways that you can plan accordingly. And I've talked about this a little bit, where you want to really budget and pull your tax payments out of your business ideally on a monthly basis. You can do it on a weekly basis. It'll be an even smaller amount of money that you're pulling out. But, really planning for that and not doing so as a money mistake. And you don't need to make that mistake over and over again. So if you're hearing this today, like just make a task for yourself. Like you're going to visit with your financial professional, or you're going to sit down and make a plan, and you're going to just pull a certain amount of money out of your business every week or every month for taxes. Just do this from now on, because you don't need to learn this lesson again or at all, right? And that's, to me, the thing with money mistakes is like, let's just learn from them. So not planning for taxes was a money mistake I made, and I don't make it anymore. Let's not make it anymore. A really common one that consultants make is undercharging for their services. And I think that consultants make this mistake because they feel like it's going to be easier for clients to say yes to them. And that's not true. You hold your value within yourself, and you can charge as much as you'd like to charge. And as long as you stand in that value, then you're going to find clients who are going to be willing to pay you that. So undercharging is a way for you to end up not profitable and not joyful in your business. Now, you may notice that I'm in an unusual place today. I'm with my client mastermind group in St. Louis in this wonderful historic hotel. It's the Union Station Hotel. It used to be a train station. It's palatial. It's wonderful and beautiful. And I love to be in places, it's huge, big. And I love to be in places like this that are historic and big and remind us of kind of like the grandiosity of living and how we used to live. And it helps us to visit and recalibrate our money thermostat and our feelings about money. And it can also show us what opulent spending looks like. So one of the mistakes that I see a lot of my clients making is overspending in their businesses. There's there's got to be some balance. And overspending is like feeling like you have to buy all the things or invest in all the programs, or very early out the gate, putting your money towards things that are not going to be revenue generating, or that's not how you get clients. So what's always interesting for me for consultants is, we need to have complicated funnels, and we need to have this, our website needs to be doing all these things, when it's like really the way that a consultant is going to get clients the first 3 years is going to be either people from corporate, people in your immediate acquaintance, people you've worked with and already know you, or from networking and being seen. Like those are usually going to be the first 3 ways that people are going to see you. And a fancy website that's expensive is going to be a wasted investment for you. You don't need to have that. You can start with a 1-page website, and you can start with really no website at all, and a really, decent LinkedIn presence. But watch your overspending, or watch your spending in general in the beginning, and don't try to build like an opulent palace when you are not earning accordingly. Overspending can also look like hiring too much, too fast, too soon. So I'm almost always discouraging my clients from hiring employees or anyone full-time except themselves and possibly a family member for tax reasons. That was not tax advice. The reason that we might do that is for financial planning reasons and for tax planning reasons. And before you bring in a full-time employee, it should be extremely easy for you to pay yourself. You should be consistently paying yourself and profiting before you bring in any full-time employee. And as long as you can, I encourage Work with contractors to the extent that that is legal, meaning they can't be working for you full time and being paid as contractors, but you can have a lot of hours of various contractors working for you. So hiring too much too soon is a big money mistake. And I've talked about this in other episodes, and it's a thing we can follow up on. You can contact me about, but I really want you to feel extreme comfort paying yourself. I've been in too many situations where I go in and the principal consultant of the firm is like struggling to make payroll for that themselves and that employee. It means you've hired too soon. They're not going to be revenue generating as soon as you think they are. And if you've hired people for support roles so that they can free you up for revenue generation, you've very likely put a lot of pressure on yourself. So watch out for that kind of thing. I mentioned the tax story, but and not saving up for that, but there can be emergencies in businesses. And if COVID wasn't a good example of that, I don't know what is. You know how they say like you should have 6 months in savings for your family, just as a savings. Your business needs to be able to weather, to withstand one client quitting, like they getting fired. I've had plenty of people come to me and say, that was my bread and butter client and we got fired by them. And I didn't expect that. And now we don't know what to do. So I don't want you to anticipate negative things. And I also want you to be prepared for, have some savings in your business. Have a savings account that has savings in it so that you can support, the business can support itself and it wouldn't need a loan from you in order to survive. So when you look at those kinds of mistakes, Nick, not planning for taxes or not having savings, undercharging your clients and overspending on support services for yourself, I want you to be very conscious about those things. And just having basic financial literacy, to me, the lack of that is one of the biggest financial mistakes that I see for my clients. And the actions that they take accordingly are because of not having enough financial literacy. So I think underpricing proposals, having an engagement and underpricing it because you didn't know how long it was going to take, or you didn't know how to do the costing, like proper costing. There's somebody that you can bring in who can help you with that. And it's actually not that hard if you have just like basic financial literacy. So feeling like you can learn things and be good at math. This is, to me, the purpose of this whole season for you is I want all of us to just have a language around this so you're comfortable talking about it. I alluded to this just a moment ago, but a huge money mistake that you can make is being over-reliant on that one client, or those, having 50% of your business or more reliant on one client is like way too many eggs in one basket. And this is why I always say, I don't work with anybody who hasn't had at least 3 clients. In your business, I want you to have 3 to 10. That's the base of your pyramid, 3 to 10. Why am I always saying 3? Because one client is basically a glorified job. You're just an outside contractor. That's not a consultancy. 2 clients is close, but it's not a consultancy yet, right? That's half of it, 2 half-time jobs, 2 part-time jobs. When you have 3 clients, you finally are having this feeling of like needing to manage your time. None of the clients thinks they own you. You are having fluency with juggling multiple balls and multiple ideas and responsibilities in your mind. So that's really, to me, the minimum. And less than that is a big money mistake that you can make. Now we've looked at the money mistakes. And so I wanted to talk for a minute about the shame. So I see the shame from my clients and I've experienced it myself. I think one of the big pieces of shame is I should be doing what everybody else is. And so we project that others in your peer group are, more successful than you are. I see it's constantly in my coaching programs. Everybody else is earning more than I am. And I feel like this terrible like beginner who's never gotten out of the starting box. Well, you don't know how much everybody else is making. And also it's none of your business. It doesn't matter. But having this comparison thing, falling into the comparison trap and then feeling ashamed that you're not where they are. So sometimes those people started 20 years ago and you're not where they are. And sometimes they have a whole skill set and sometimes they just got lucky with a certain client or whatever. So I think comparison is a dangerous game, and attaching shame to it is particularly insidious because it drains your energy. In general, having shame around any of these mistakes, it causes you to avoid the money topic altogether. It can cause, right? So I have money shame. I've made mistakes. I'm not good with money. We have these beliefs about it, and then we just push the whole thing away. I have a client who was like, well, I just find my money's better if I don't ever look at it. No, that's not a strategy. Okay. So feeling shame that causes us to push away something that you can be good at and grow and learn from, that's a dangerous takeaway from this. It's a dangerous thing. So I want you, rather than that, I want you to come up with practical things that you can do with these lessons. So the second thing that money shame causes us to do is to really, it is a hit to your self-confidence and your self-esteem, and you don't value yourself. So again, this is I'm not good with money. I can't charge high prices. Whenever I try to sell those high prices, nobody will buy. This is because there is this general shame around money and sense of our own value. And I just find that when you get into that kind of shame spiral, that you tend to, those poor decisions that you made that you feel ashamed of cause you to make more poor decisions, and the whole thing just continues. So I'm an action taker, and I want us to really, what's the first thing that you can do? Like, be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with yourself. What are the things that you learned from the money mistakes that you made? There's information for that in you. If you can, spread the curtains of shame and really take away the charge of that and say, okay, like, well, what was the lesson in that? And like I said, the tax guy didn't shame me. The tax guy was like, okay, well, here's what you need to do. So what did I learn from my whole tax experience? I needed to have support. It was an activity I don't know how to do. And so I needed to have support to have people to help me doing it, both the bookkeeping of it and the keeping up with the expenses. By the way, I have a team for this now, who keep up with the expenses. I needed help with the tax process, that whole thing. And guess what? I needed to put away money on an ongoing basis so that I wouldn't have a tax surprise once a year. So those are great lessons for me. What's the fourth lesson I learned? A lot of people had this problem. It wasn't just me. And carrying around shame about it didn't help me to get it done, did it? No, it just sucked my energy away. So great. I have 4 actionable takeaways that I can use so that I don't get in that situation again. It reminds me, I had a guy, my financial mentor, when I was at the Coca-Cola company. By the way, his birthday was 2 days ago. My financial mentor told me that when he and his wife were young marrieds, they got into a lot of debt in their first home. They put the keys to the house in an envelope and mailed it back to the bank and left the house and just moved out of it. I don't think you can do that nowadays. I don't think that's a foreclosure or anti-foreclosure strategy. You can't just give the house back to the bank in that way. Maybe you can, I don't know. But he didn't have a lot of shame around that. He was like, well, we were young, we got into a big mess, and we did this and stepped away from it with a clean slate. That's not advice. What I'm saying is that's a guy who got over it and moved on. And by the way, went on to be very successful and retired very wealthy. So let's, rather than comparing ourselves and feeling like we're less than others, let's look at how a few really good examples of people managing money mistakes and not even getting into a money shame spiral. So that's the first thing. Let's look at the lessons we can take away from the things that we've done in the past. And for goodness sake, implement the lessons. Let's okay, I don't need to learn that twice. Some things we need to learn over and over again. Let's not make those things the ones that we do. Practice self-compassion and forgive yourself for that. Be gentle with yourself around this topic. And then create ways that you can learn more and become more financially literate, the way that you can become better at the tax stuff or whatever is your issue, in ways that are at least a little bit joyful for you. So the way that I feel joyful about the tax stuff is I love my bookkeeping company and I love my tax person. And I need to feel like I can take this stuff and be like, I don't super understand it. Can you guys help me with this? And they're like, sure, no problem. And they take it away from me. So that's a delegation plus a little bit of education. Okay. Plan. It is really going to help you to feel empowered around this stuff, knowing what you're supposed to do as a next action. So if you have a history of undercharging, your plan is going to be, what do I learn from undercharging? Why do I think I'm doing this? Can I forgive myself for this? And can I clear the shame that I have around this? And then can I make a plan to be able to start increasing my prices? Whether you're going to talk with a colleague or whether you're going to work with someone else on this, you're going to hire a coach for this, whatever is your plan for that. Okay. So in the beginning, I mentioned the 3 mistakes idea. So I want you to reflect on those 3 mistakes. And this is your homework from today's episode. Reflect on those 3 mistakes. And for each one of them, go through and ask yourself, what did I learn from this? And as you heard from my tax one, I didn't learn one thing. I didn't learn, oh, you got to pay your taxes on time. No. I learned like 4 different things, 4 different sub ideas that have helped me, not just on the tax issue, but in my business and learning about myself also. For example, if I'm not supported, I get overwhelmed. Okay, good to know. So what do you learn from each of these? That you can then apply to that and also other things going forward. And then can you write a little plan like I did with my tax stuff? Can you write, here are the steps that I'm going to follow going forward? I'm going to negotiate with the company that proposes to do my website, or I'm going to look at a co-working space instead of having a full-time office, or I'm going to see if I can get a refurbished computer rather than having the latest, greatest thing that they have. So these are just different things that we can think about. And bring that spirit of gentleness to it. So there's a couple of resources that I'm going to offer, and one is kind of unusual. So obviously, I think you can and should work with business coaches who specialize in something like this and who can support and help you with it. And I also want you to look at a place like Reddit. On Reddit, there's a bunch of people who've been in this situation, and you're going to find communities and be able to read other stories. And Reddit is anonymous, so in that way, it's a little bit better of a social medium. And you'll see Reddit threads that are dedicated to this. So I'm going to put some of those in the show notes, where you'll hear other people's stories. And what can be beneficial in them sometimes is hearing like, wow, I thought I had a problem, and now I read this. So positive comparison, I think comparisons that can make you feel better. And then the last comparison I want you to think about is, listen, everyone makes money mistakes. Everyone makes money mistakes, but not everyone is carrying shame around about them. And so if you can remember that and release that need to feel that shame and hang on to that shame and be shut down by it, then you're going to be able to invest in learning, invest in self-improvement, and investing in growing a profitable and joyful consulting business, which is what I wish for you. Thanks.